I remember the first time I met Lily. It was on a warm summer day in Colorado, the kind of day when the scent of fresh grass and blooming flowers filled the air. I was just a teenager then, still in high school, and the world felt simpler, less complicated. We grew up in the same small town, our families connected by the land and the farm, yet our paths had never really crossed until that fateful afternoon. Her family had recently moved to the area, and they were settling into the house down the street from ours. I could remember seeing Lily's bright, curious eyes the first time we spoke. She was walking down the street, a stack of books in her arms, when I offered to help. She flashed me a smile, and something clicked. We became inseparable after that. At first, it was nothing more than a shared walk to school or late-night conversations about dreams and ambitions. We spent countless hours together, whether it was tending to the farm or exploring the hills behind the town. Lily had this incredible energy about her. She always believed in something greater than the world we saw around us. Maybe that's why I fell in love with her, so quickly and so deeply. She made everything seem magical. The simple acts of caring for the crops, the joy of watching the sun rise over the hills, and the shared silence as we sat on the porch, watching the stars emerge. After high school, we went to separate colleges, but we promised we would find our way back to each other. The years apart were tough, but our bond held. We wrote letters, made phone calls, and visited each other when we could. The love I felt for Lily never wavered, even when life seemed to be pulling us in different directions. I always believed we were destined to be together. When I proposed to her, it wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a huge ceremony or an elaborate plan. It was just a simple moment in the middle of our daily lives. We were sitting on the porch of her parents' house, sipping iced tea, when I turned to her and said, "Lily, will you marry me?" Her smile was all the answer I needed. I knew then that no matter what the future held, we would face it together. The wedding came soon after, just a few months later. We were young, but I felt like I had everything I needed. Our families came together to celebrate, and there was this sense of unity, like we were all part of something bigger. It felt like a dream. I thought this was it, the beginning of forever. Those early days of our marriage were full of joy and promise. We started our life in a small house on the edge of town, not far from where we had grown up. I worked the farm, just like my father before me, while Lily took a position managing finances for a local food production company. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours, and we built it together. We shared meals, dreams, and quiet evenings in front of the fire. Life felt perfect. We were partners in every sense of the word. We had plans for the future, for a family, for a life that would stand the test of time. Every conversation we had was filled with hope. I remember talking about our children one night, how we'd raise them on the farm, teaching them the values we had grown up with. There was so much optimism in her eyes. At first, everything was as it should be. We faced challenges, like every couple, but we handled them together. We grew our little farm, bought new equipment, and started thinking about expanding our family. There was a sense of balance between our work and our personal life. I never imagined anything would threaten that peace. But in hindsight, I realized that something shifted. It wasn't sudden, and I didn't notice it at first. It was subtle, like the changing seasons that you only really understand in retrospect. Lily became more withdrawn over time. She was always busy with her work, always stressed, but she never seemed as present as before. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. We were supposed to be happy, to be building something together. But I started to feel the cracks forming, though I didn't have the courage to admit it at the time. I just couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. In the early days of our marriage, Lily was always there. We shared everything, the good, the bad, and everything in between. But as the months wore on, I began to notice a shift. It wasn't something I could put my finger on at first. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. At first, I thought it was just the stress of our work, or maybe the weight of responsibilities settling in. But deep down, I knew it was something more. It started with the little things. Our conversations, once full of laughter and excitement, became shorter, more strained. Lily seemed distracted, her attention drifting away from me when we were together. She was always on her phone, checking emails or messages, even when we were sitting together at dinner. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but there was an unease in the air that I couldn't shake. It wasn't like her to be so detached. Lily had always been the type to dive into conversations, to engage with me fully. But now, she barely looked me in the eye during our talks. There was always something pulling her away. I'd mention it a few times, casually, and she'd apologize. "I'm just tired," she'd say, brushing it off with a tired smile. But I wasn't convinced. I could sense a distance growing between us that I couldn't close, no matter how hard I tried. I started to feel it in the quiet moments, the ones where we used to connect. We'd sit together on the porch watching the sunset, but she'd always have her phone in her hand, her gaze elsewhere. I wondered what was so important, what was so pressing that she couldn't be present with me in those moments. It was like I was sitting next to a stranger, someone I didn't fully recognize. Then came the nights when she'd stay up later than usual, working in the office or texting someone. I tried to understand. Maybe it was work, or maybe she was dealing with something I didn't know about. I didn't want to push her, but a gnawing feeling began to eat away at me. The thought that something was wrong, something more than just stress or exhaustion, lingered in the back of my mind. There were other things too, more subtle, yet they hit me just the same. She began to pull away from physical affection. The long hugs that used to last minutes, the hand-holding that felt natural, all became rare. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking it, but I knew. I felt it deep in my chest that something had changed, something I couldn't ignore. Lily always had a warm presence, a certain light about her, but that light started to dim. She didn't laugh as much as she used to. The sparkle in her eyes seemed to fade when she looked at me. I had hoped it was just a phase, a moment of tension that would pass, but each day it felt more and more like a heavy fog that had settled between us. I tried to reach out to her, tried to pull her back into our world, into the life we had built together. But the more I tried, the more distant she became. There were days when she seemed like a completely different person, like she was going through the motions without truly being there with me. One night, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, the emptiness between us palpable. She had been quiet all evening, lost in thought, and I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. Was it just the pressure of life, or was there something else? "Lily," I said softly, hoping my voice didn't betray the anxiety building inside me. "Are you okay? You've been acting different lately." She looked up from her phone, her expression guarded. "I'm fine, John. Just tired." Her words, though familiar, didn't reassure me. There was a hesitation in her voice, a tremor I couldn't place. I wanted to press further, to ask her more, but something in her demeanor told me that pushing her would only drive her further away. I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. The weight of the uncertainty pressed down on me. I tried to remember the last time we had laughed together, when the world felt light and full of promise. It seemed like ages ago. The distance between us had become a chasm, and I had no idea how to cross it. I never imagined I would be here, questioning the very foundation of my marriage. The thought that Lily might be hiding something from me felt unbearable, yet I couldn't ignore the signs. The shifts in her behavior, the way she had become so distant, were no longer just coincidences. I had to know the truth, but I was terrified of what I might find. It was a quiet evening, one of those rare nights when everything seemed calm, as if the world was holding its breath. I had finished up with the day's work and sat down at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone, trying to relax. The day's tension between Lily and me had weighed heavily on me, but I didn't want to dwell on it. It felt easier to just distract myself with the trivialities of social media. Then I saw it. A banner ad caught my eye, something about a live stream experience and a promise of exclusive intimate content. I clicked on it out of sheer curiosity. I didn't think much of it at first. I had stumbled across sites like this before, and I always quickly dismissed them. But tonight I felt strangely compelled to keep scrolling. Maybe it was the dull ache of the emotional distance that had been growing between Lily and me. Or maybe I was just searching for something to fill the emptiness. As I clicked through, my gaze landed on a thumbnail. A woman, confident and alluring, smiling provocatively at the camera. Her name, Jenna, flashed across the screen. For some reason, I paused, Something about her smile struck me, as though I had seen it before, but I brushed it off as just my mind playing tricks. I clicked on the video. My heart stopped as soon as I saw her. It was Lily. The shock hit me in waves. It wasn't the woman's face that threw me. It was the familiar way she moved, the gestures, the laugh. It was unmistakably her. But the surroundings were different. No longer our modest home or the farm we had worked so hard to build. She was in a room I didn't recognize, but there was no mistaking the woman in front of the camera. The woman I loved, the woman I had married. In the video, she was with a man I didn't recognize, muscular, handsome, and completely at ease with the camera. She looked different somehow, more confident than the shy girl I had married. I watched in disbelief as the scene unfolded. I was frozen. I had no idea what to think, what to feel. The man, Mario, spoke to her in a teasing voice. "Well, darling, that was definitely worth the trip. Bet your husband doesn't make you feel this good, huh?" Lily smiled, her eyes glinting with something I had never seen in her before. She responded, "You're good, Mario, but trust me, my husband, he's amazing. I've been with a few guys, but no one does it like him." I could hear my breath catch in my throat. My mind raced. What was happening? Was this some kind of sick joke, or was it real? I needed to know more. The questions kept flooding in. Had I missed the signs? Had I ignored her absence? Was this the reason she had become so distant? As the video continued, my emotions swung from anger to confusion to heartbreak. Lily had been honest, or at least she had seemed honest, when she told me that our intimacy was fine, that everything was fine between us. But here she was, on display for someone else. Someone I didn't even know. I kept watching, unable to look away. Mario, the man in the video, asked her why she was doing this if her husband was so amazing. Lily's reply made my stomach turn. "I didn't plan for this," she said with a slight laugh, "but I love sex and it's a chance to get away and be free. He'll never know. I love him with all my heart, but sometimes it's nice to experience something different." I felt sick to my stomach. The thought that Lily, the woman I had promised my life to, could betray me like this, so openly and unapologetically, was almost too much to bear. I quickly closed the video, my hands shaking. I knew then that my life, everything I thought I understood about my marriage, had changed. The woman I thought I knew was someone else entirely. The trust I had built between us had been shattered in an instant. I had to know more. The site offered an archive, videos from past visits, and with my heart pounding, I paid for a membership to gain access. For the next several hours, I watched as my wife's secrets unraveled before me. Video after video, trip after trip, each one revealing her infidelity in shocking detail. I couldn't breathe. How could I have been so blind? The evidence was undeniable. It wasn't just one mistake, one slip-up. It was a pattern. By the time I had finished downloading the videos, I felt numb. A part of me wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was paralyzed by the realization that everything I thought I knew was a lie. I had the proof now, proof that she had been lying to me for who knows how long. But even then, part of me couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't ready to face the consequences of this truth. What would it mean for us? What would it mean for our future? The room felt suffocating. I turned off the computer and sat there in silence, not knowing what to do next. I had no idea how this discovery would shape the rest of my life, but one thing was certain. I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen. My mind replayed the video over and over. Lily, my wife, on that screen, laughing and engaging with another man. Mario. The name echoed in my head like a curse. The worst part wasn't even the fact that she was with another man. It was the ease with which she did it, the confidence she exuded, the casualness of the affair, and the way she seemed to justify it. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional. I had to know more. The guilt, the anger, the confusion, all of it was consuming me. I couldn't let it go. The worst part was I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. I had already seen too much. But I had to find out if there was more, something that would explain why she had been hiding this from me for so long. I went back to the website. The thought of paying for another premium membership made me sick to my stomach. But I needed the answers. I needed to see if there were more videos, more evidence. So I did it. For the next few hours, I poured through video after video. And there it was. The proof. The videos weren't just from one visit or two. They spanned over months. There were trips I hadn't known about. Times when she had told me she was working late or spending time with friends. I watched her in a hotel room with Mario, then Steve, then another man. Each video more explicit than the last. It was like watching a stranger, not the woman I had married. She wasn't the same person on that screen. She was someone else entirely. The realization hit me like a brick to the chest. She had been lying to me for so long, building a life of deceit right under my nose. Every time she'd come home from one of these business trips, every time she'd gone out for drinks with friends, I had believed her, and she was smiling in my face while hiding the truth that shattered everything I knew about our relationship. I wanted to scream, to throw my computer across the room, but I couldn't. Instead, I found myself numb. I was no longer angry, no longer hurt. I was hollow, empty, and everything felt like it was slipping away. How long had she been doing this? How many times had she betrayed me? The questions circled around in my mind, relentless. I sat there staring at the screen. The images of my wife with other men burned into my brain. I felt like I was suffocating. My chest ached, as though my heart had been ripped out and replaced with something cold and hard. I knew I had to act. I couldn't let this go on any longer. But how? What could I do with this evidence? What was the next step? Could I even confront her without completely destroying everything? The videos were damning. There was no denying it now. I had everything I needed. But something inside me held me back. I thought about the future. What would happen to everything we had built? The house, the farm, the life we'd dreamed of together? How could I throw it all away? But then the thought crept in, the thought I had been avoiding for weeks. Did I even want to save it anymore? Could I ever look at her the same way again? Could I ever trust her again? I opened a folder on my computer and started copying the videos. Each click was like a weight being added to my chest. As I downloaded them, I thought about the next steps. I had to make sure they were safe. I couldn't let her destroy the evidence. The last thing I needed was for her to find out what I knew before I was ready to confront her. I transferred the files onto a USB drive and stored it away in my desk drawer. I sat back, taking a deep breath, but it didn't help. There was no relief, no peace, only more questions. What now? The question was always the same, spinning around in my mind. What was I supposed to do with this knowledge? I had the evidence, the proof that my wife had been lying to me, betraying me, and I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. But even with all the evidence in front of me, the decision wasn't clear. I had everything I needed to confront her, to tear apart the life we had built. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me was still holding back. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but I wasn't sure I was ready to face the fallout. Could I be the man I thought I was and walk away from the woman I loved? Or was there something salvageable here? Did I have it in me to forgive her? To rebuild what we had? As the night stretched on, I found myself staring at the screen, the evidence of my wife's betrayal before me. I had no answers, only more questions, and the pain of knowing that the person I trusted most had hurt me in ways I couldn't even begin to comprehend. The house felt unnaturally quiet. I sat at the kitchen table, the weight of the decision I had to make pressing down on me like a physical thing. The evidence was clear. It had been staring me in the face for days now, and I couldn't avoid it anymore. I had watched those videos, listened to the lies, and seen the truth. Lily had betrayed me, but now I had to confront her. The question was no longer if I should confront her. The question was how, and whether I could handle the aftermath. Every time I thought about it, my stomach twisted in knots. I had so many conflicting emotions running through me: betrayal, anger, confusion, even a strange sense of emptiness. How was I supposed to look at her the same way again? I had to be sure. I couldn't just rush into this. I needed to approach it carefully, to gather myself before I unleashed everything I was feeling. But every time I looked at those videos, the anger welled up again. It was a constant battle between the man I had been, the one who believed in honesty and trust, and the man I was becoming, the one consumed by the need for answers. I thought about the farm, about the life we had built together. We had started with nothing, worked day and night, and made something beautiful. Now it felt like all of that was slipping through my fingers. Could I really throw it all away? Would confronting her tear apart everything we had, or was this the only way to reclaim the respect and love I had lost? I had no idea how she would react. I had never imagined Lily capable of doing something like this. How could I have missed the signs? How could she look me in the eye every day and deceive me? I could feel the sting of it all over again, the deep ache in my chest that wouldn't go away. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Lily. She was on her way home. I could feel my heart race, my hands start to shake. This was it. She had no idea what I knew. She had no idea that the world I had built in my mind was now shattered. I had the power now. But power meant nothing if I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my finger hovering over the message. Part of me wanted to confront her right away, to tell her everything, to make her face the reality of what she had done. But another part of me, the part that still loved her despite everything, hesitated. What was the point of a confrontation if I was only going to tear us both apart? She walked through the door, her face lighting up when she saw me. She seemed so normal, so unaware of the storm that had been brewing inside me for days. My heart ached at the sight of her, but I couldn't let that distract me. I had to stay strong. "Hey, love," she said, walking over to kiss me on the cheek. I pulled away slightly, my emotions a tangled mess inside me. "Lily, we need to talk," I said, my voice unsteady. She looked at me, a frown starting to form on her face. "What's wrong? You're acting strange." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I know what's been going on, Lily," I said, the words coming out in a rush, as though they'd been choking me for days. Her face changed, her eyes widening with surprise, and then fear. The fear was there, hidden just beneath the surface. She knew. She knew I had discovered the truth. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked over to my desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out the USB drive. I held it up between us. "I know about Mario and Steve and all the others. I know what you've been doing, Lily." Her face paled, and for a moment she said nothing. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, "John, please. It's not what you think." The tears welled up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Don't lie to me, Lily. I've seen it all, every single video. I know the truth." She took a step back and her hands began to tremble. I didn't want this to happen. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." My pulse was racing and my hands clenched into fists. "A mistake? You think this is a mistake? How long were you planning on hiding this from me, Lily? How long were you going to keep lying to my face?" She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "I'm so sorry, John. I didn't want to hurt you." I let out a harsh laugh, bitter and hollow. "You've already hurt me, Lily. You've already destroyed everything. You can't just say sorry and expect things to go back to normal. This isn't something we can just brush under the rug." There was a long silence between us, filled only with the weight of what had been revealed. I could see the shame in her eyes, the desperation in her expression, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Not now. Not when she had torn apart the trust that had been the foundation of our entire relationship. "I don't know what to do anymore," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. "Please, John, please don't leave me. I love you. I've made so many mistakes, but I need you." I stood there frozen, my mind torn. I had all the proof, all the reasons to walk away, to end it all. But something in me, something deep down, was holding me back. I wasn't sure what would happen next. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. The silence in the room was suffocating. I sat across from Lily, unable to shake the image of her broken and crying on the couch just moments before. Her words echoed in my mind. "I love you. Please don't leave me," but they felt hollow. What was left of the love I thought we shared? Could I even remember what it felt like to trust her? I had to keep my composure. I had to face this head on, no matter how painful it was. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I was seeing her for who she really was. And the person I saw was not the woman I married. She was someone else, someone I didn't recognize, someone who had betrayed me in ways I hadn't imagined possible. The tension was palpable as Lily wiped her eyes and sat up straighter. She tried to look me in the eye, but her gaze kept darting away. She was afraid of what was coming next. But what could she say now? What could she possibly say that would make any of this better? "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I know I've ruined everything, but please don't give up on me. Don't give up on us." Her words stung, but I couldn't let myself feel pity for her. This wasn't about sympathy. This was about me, about what I was willing to accept, and more importantly, what I wasn't. "I don't know how to look at you the same way anymore," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even know who you are anymore." She flinched, the words cutting deeper than she had expected. "John, I was stupid. I wasn't thinking. I was so lost in my own head. I made mistakes. I never wanted to hurt you. But the damage had already been done. The lies, the deceit, it was all laid bare now. I had seen the truth with my own eyes. I had watched her in ways I never should have, and now I could never unsee what I had learned. I trusted you, Lily. I believed in you, in us, and you did this. You sold us out for a quick thrill, and for what? For some temporary excitement." She reached out, but I pulled back instinctively. "I never meant for it to happen this way, John. I never wanted to hurt you." Her voice cracked as she spoke, but I couldn't find it in me to comfort her. I had done that too many times before, and now it felt empty. I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. "You don't get it. This isn't just about you making mistakes. This is about everything we've built. Do you realize what you've taken from us? The trust, the security." "I know," she whispered. "I know, and I'm so sorry. But please, John, I need you. I love you. I was weak. I don't know why I did it, but I want to fix this." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw everything I had at her, to make her feel the pain that had been building up inside me. But something inside me held back. I wasn't ready for the confrontation I thought I wanted. Every part of me screamed that this was the end. But then another part, the part that still clung to the memory of who she used to be, hesitated. "You think saying sorry is enough?" I asked, turning to face her again, the frustration seeping through my words. "You think your apology is going to fix everything?" She didn't respond immediately. She knew it wasn't that simple. It couldn't be. I walked over to the window and looked outside, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. What was I supposed to do with all this? Could I really walk away from her, from everything we had? Could I let go of the life we had built together? Or was this just the beginning of a path I couldn't turn back from? "I don't know what to do," I said quietly, my voice breaking as much as I tried to hold it together. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you." Lily stood up slowly and took a tentative step toward me. "John, I will do anything to make this right. I'll prove to you that I can change. Just, please don't leave me." I turned to face her again. She looked so small, so fragile standing there in front of me. But the anger I had felt earlier was fading, replaced by something else, something I couldn't place. Guilt, maybe. Regret. Was I being weak? Was I fooling myself into thinking there was a chance? "I don't even know where to begin, Lily. How do I start to fix this? How do I even begin to trust you again?" She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "We'll start slow. We'll rebuild. I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I could ever believe her words again. The damage had been done, and no matter how much she begged or how hard she tried, I wasn't sure I could forgive her. Not yet. Not after everything I had seen. The room fell silent again, the air between us thick with unsaid words, with so much left hanging in the balance. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I couldn't make any decisions tonight. I needed time. Time to process the betrayal. Time to decide if there was any part of me left that could still love the woman who had shattered my trust. "Lily," I said finally, "I need time. I need to think about this." Her face fell, but she nodded, understanding that I wasn't ready to make any promises. And as much as I hated to admit it, I wasn't sure I ever would be. The days following our confrontation were a blur. Lily's pleas, her apologies, her promises to change, everything was a cacophony in my head, clashing with my own thoughts, my own doubts. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but how could I? The trust I had once placed in her had been shattered, and now it felt like there was nothing left to hold on to. I kept replaying the moment when I had first confronted her. The tears in her eyes, the way she had crumbled in front of me. She was broken, but was she truly sorry? Or was she just afraid of losing everything she had? Her actions spoke louder than her words. The more I thought about it, the more I questioned her sincerity. How long had this been going on? How many other times had she hidden the truth from me? I tried to focus on work, tried to distract myself with the familiar routine of the farm, but it didn't help. Everything felt different now. The land we had worked on together, the home we had built, it all felt tainted. My mind wouldn't let me escape the images of her with other men, the way she had looked at them with such passion, such ease. And that smile she had, so different from the one she gave me. It was like she was someone else entirely. Lily had kept texting me, calling me, hoping for some sign that I was coming around. I'd ignored most of it. I didn't have the strength to talk to her, to pretend that everything could go back to the way it was. It had been a week since we last spoke, and the silence was killing me. But more than that, I felt like I was drowning in my own emotions. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. Anger, sadness, betrayal. I felt all of it, swirling together in an endless storm that wouldn't let me go. One afternoon, after a long day of work, I found myself sitting on the porch, staring out into the distance. The wind was picking up, the sky turning a shade of orange as the sun began to set. It was the kind of evening that used to calm me, used to make me feel at peace. But today, it only made me feel more lost. I could hear Lily's voice in my head, her desperate, pleading voice. But the more I thought about it, the clearer my decision became. This wasn't just about forgiving her. It wasn't about giving her a second chance. This was about me, and about my own future. Could I live with her betrayal? Could I live with the knowledge that she had deceived me repeatedly, while I had given her everything? I had to face the truth. No, I couldn't. I stood up, my decision made. I would no longer let the fear of the unknown hold me back. It wasn't about anger anymore. It wasn't about punishment. It was about reclaiming my life, my peace, and my sense of self. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, constantly questioning everything, constantly second-guessing my every move. Lily was sitting on the couch when I walked in. She looked up at me, her eyes red from crying. I had seen that look before, many times. The look of someone who knew they had done wrong, but was still hoping for redemption. I stood there for a moment, unsure of how to start. What words could I say that would make sense of everything? What words could I say that would undo the damage? Finally, I spoke. "Lily, I've made my decision." Her face paled, and she stood up quickly. "What do you mean? Are you leaving me?" The pain in her voice was unmistakable, but it didn't change the truth. "I can't forgive you for this. Not right now. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not. I need to move on." She took a step toward me, but I held up my hand, signaling for her to stop. "I can't live like this anymore. I need to be on my own. I need to find myself again, and I can't do that with you in my life right now." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Lily's face crumpled, her shoulders shaking as she finally broke down into sobs. But I stood still, watching her, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was at peace with my decision. "I'm sorry, John," she whispered through her tears. "I never meant to hurt you." "I know," I said, my voice softer now. "But the damage is done, and I can't undo it." There was nothing more to say. We both knew what had to happen. I turned away from her, the weight of the moment sinking in. I couldn't stay here, in this house that had once been filled with love and laughter. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. I needed space. I needed to breathe. As I walked out the door, the sun had set completely, leaving behind only the darkness. But for the first time in days, the darkness didn't feel so overwhelming. It felt like freedom. It had been days since I made my decision, but the weight of it still pressed down on me like a boulder. Lily was gone, physically, emotionally, and maybe even mentally. She had packed her things, and we barely exchanged a word before she left. I had thought that her absence would bring me peace, but instead, I felt the emptiness of it all. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the spot where she had stood just hours before, pleading with me to reconsider. The smell of her perfume still lingered in the air, but it was a reminder of something that was now lost, something I could never get back. How could I have let this happen? How could I have allowed her to betray me like this? The truth hung heavy in the silence. The videos, the lies, everything she had kept hidden from me. It was as though I was seeing her for the first time, and it hurt more than I could have imagined. I had spent years loving a woman who, in the end, had never been truly honest with me. I walked over to the window, looking out at the farm. It was quiet now, too quiet. The hustle of the past few days, the stress of decisions weighing on me had quieted the world. It felt like I was standing on the edge of something uncertain, something that could either be a new beginning or a devastating end. But no matter what happened, the past couldn't be undone. The truth was out, and there was no turning back from it. I closed my eyes, the memories of better times flooding my mind. Lily and I had been a team, partners in everything. We had built this life together, brick by brick. And yet she had torn it all down with a single decision. The fact that I could never trust her the same way again was a bitter pill I was still trying to swallow. My phone buzzed, pulling me out of my thoughts. I didn't need to check it, but I did anyway. It was a message from her. "John, please, let's talk. I want to explain. I don't want to lose you." I stared at the message, my mind racing. What could she possibly say now? What explanation could she offer that would make any of this right? I had already heard all the excuses. It was a mistake. I was just looking for something I didn't know I needed, but they all sounded hollow, like empty words falling on deaf ears. I hit the reply button, my fingers hovering over the screen as I tried to find the words. My thoughts were tangled. I was angry. I was hurt. But I was also tired. Tired of the lies, tired of the broken promises. There's nothing left to say, Lily. The damage is done. I can't keep going back to this. I stared at the message before pressing send. Even as the words left my fingertips, I felt a coldness seep into my bones. It was final, this decision. And as much as I knew it was the right thing to do, it didn't make it easier. It didn't make it hurt less. Minutes passed, then hours. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. Her name appeared on the screen, and I felt a lump form in my throat. I should answer, right? I should hear her out one last time. But the truth was, I didn't want to. I didn't want to hear more excuses, more pleas. I didn't want to be dragged back into that cycle of doubt and betrayal. I let the call go to voicemail, the sound of her voice leaving a pang in my chest. But I couldn't listen to it. Not yet. Not when I knew that nothing she could say would change what I knew in my heart. I walked away from the phone, the message still flashing on the screen. It was the same feeling I had when I'd seen those videos. The feeling of betrayal, of being so utterly blindsided that it paralyzed me. How could I have been so blind? How had I missed it? But there was no point in wondering anymore. The truth was here, and it wasn't going away. I had to face it head on. I had to accept that the person I thought I knew was someone entirely different. I had to accept that my reality had been built on lies. I made a decision, one I knew would be difficult. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep holding on to something that no longer existed. I had to move on. As painful as it was, I knew it was the only way to rebuild. Not just my life, but my sense of self. I had to let go of the version of Lily that I had held on to so desperately, the version of her that I loved. I had to accept that she was gone, and that who she was now, who she had become, was not someone I could keep in my life. I looked out at the empty fields before me, a sense of finality settling over me. I had faced the truth, and now it was time to face the future, whatever that might look like. It's strange how much weight the truth can carry. It settles into your bones, slow and heavy until it's all you can feel. When I told Lily that I couldn't go on, I thought it would bring me relief. I thought that once the words were out in the open, I would feel lighter. But I didn't. The air around me seemed thicker, pressing in on me, as if the weight of everything I had learned was now physically suffocating me. The days that followed were a blur of emotions I couldn't quite manage. I would wake up in the morning trying to shake off the weight of the night before, and every day felt the same, empty, quiet, detached. It was as though the world outside was still moving, still carrying on, but I was stuck in place, unable to move forward, unable to forget. I spent most of my time at the farm doing the only thing I knew how to do, work. It kept my mind occupied, even if it didn't ease the ache in my chest. It wasn't enough, though. Nothing was. The memories of Lily, of us, haunted every corner of the house, every field. I could see her smile in the sunlight as we worked side by side, hear her laugh echoing in the barn as we shared small, silly moments. Those were the moments I had cherished, the moments I had believed would last forever, but forever doesn't exist when trust is broken. I tried to tell myself that it was the right decision, that I had done the only thing I could do. But doubt gnawed at me constantly. Maybe if I had done this differently, maybe if I hadn't found out the way I did, maybe if I hadn't let my emotions get the best of me, maybe I could have forgiven her. But I knew deep down that I couldn't. The reality was too harsh, too painful. I couldn't live in a relationship where the foundation was built on lies. Even if she said she was sorry, her actions spoke louder than any apology. The divorce papers arrived in the mail that day. I hadn't expected them so soon, but I wasn't surprised. Lily must have known it was coming. She had seen the distance growing between us, felt the walls I had been building, and it was clear from the way she reacted the last time we spoke that she understood what had to happen. She had no fight left in her. The pleading, the crying, the apologies, they had all faded into the background now, replaced by the cold, hard truth of what was happening. I signed the papers, my hand steady despite the rush of emotions inside me. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't even sadness. It was something quieter, more final. The end of something that had been important, something I had once believed in, but had now been reduced to nothing more than a painful memory. A lesson learned the hard way. That evening I packed up the last of her things from the house. It felt like I was packing away pieces of myself along with them. The photographs, the clothes, the small trinkets that had once meant so much. They all felt like ghosts now. The house, which had once been filled with the warmth of our shared life, now felt like an empty shell. I didn't know where Lily went after that. She had left without a word, without any explanation. I didn't want to know. She had her own journey to take, and I had mine. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I knew it was a road I had to walk alone. The hardest part of it all wasn't signing the papers, or packing up her things, or even confronting the truth. It was realizing that no matter how much I wanted to hold on to the past, I couldn't. There was nothing left to salvage. And in that moment, I finally understood. Sometimes the most painful conclusions are the ones that set us free. The future was waiting for me. I didn't know what it would look like, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done looking back. I was done living in the shadow of what had been. The truth had cut deep, but it had also given me clarity. It had given me the courage to step away, to reclaim what was mine, my peace, my dignity, my future. I walked outside, the cool night air wrapping around me like a fresh start. The stars were clearer tonight, brighter than they had been in weeks. I stood there for a long time, breathing it in. The world wasn't waiting for me, but it was there, and that was enough. For the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of something. Hope, maybe. Hope for a future that was no longer defined by betrayal. It wasn't going to be easy, I knew that. But I had already made it through the hardest part. The rest would come in time. What do you think of John and Lily's story? From which region are you watching this video? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Check out more heartwarming tales by clicking here on the end screen. Thanks for watching.